I'm gonna.
Okay, a couple of things about reports that are important to understand. And that is that looking at reports is kind of fun, and it kind of makes us feel like we're doing something really productive, because this must be what really successful people do, is they like look at and analyze numbers. And that's true. What the most successful people do is they look at and analyze numbers, and then they take action based off of what those numbers tell them. And so the real critical thing to do is to have a system in place. Now, as you hit star and superstar consultants and are driving towards director, the thing that really starts to make the difference is systems. As every business grows, this is what you've been talking about, right? As every business grows, I remember early, because I first started at Scentsy in 2008, and Scentsy was quite small then. And I remember having a conversation with Orville, and he said, that Scentsy, it was strange for him because the way Scentsy started was it was just like a to-do list, right? They just come in every single day and just jot down all of the things that they needed to do that day, and then they'd start just knocking out the to-do list. Well, pretty soon the to-do list got to be too long for just Heidi and Orville and the couple of people that were helping them. And so then they had to hire, and some of the early people that they brought on were people like Laurie Willis, who's still in compliance. She was first in consultant support. And then they brought on Dina Kinney, who was one of their first shipping employees. And she is still one of the vice president of shipping or something. Anyway, she's been around. Both of them have been around forever. They brought on Chuck Thompson, Orville's brother, who is currently the chief consultant engagement officer. They brought on Mark Statsny, chief marketing officer, right? And so they start bringing on, they brought on Julie Stewart as a designer. She's still the designer for all the kids' products, buddies, and things like that. And so now you start bringing on additional people. Well, what you have to do is you have to start creating systems so that you can say to these different people, here's how we do this at Scentsy, and let me hand it off. Now, as a consultant, you oftentimes don't bring on an assistant or a second employee. Maybe if you have a supportive family member or something like that, that can be helpful. But you don't often bring somebody on for a while. But what you really need to do is start follow a similar pattern, which is creating these systems so that you have a consistent way of doing things. That way, if things aren't working, you can reliably look at your systems and say, I've been doing this consistently. I'm not seeing the results, so I want to change it. If we're haphazard and we're all over the place, even if we're successful, you're like, well, what is it that's leading to success? I got no idea. I just do a whole bunch of weird, crazy things, and one piece of it must be working. Well, that's not a real good pattern for long-term success. And if things aren't working, you don't know what to change either, because you have all these weird haphazard things that you're doing. So becoming consistent. Booking Blitz is a perfect example of doing a booking blitz once is really good. I always encourage people to do a booking blitz once a month, because you do it August, September, October, November, December, 5 months left this year. Let's say, even if you only booked 3 parties per booking blitz, that's 3 parties a month for the next 5 months. That's really darn good. That's 15 parties before the end of the year. If you did 400, let's just say 400. I know that's a pretty big party, but let's just say 400. That's 6,000 PRV between now and the end of the year. That's just from doing 15 minutes of work once a month. That's going to get you, that's really going to make some progress on your incentive earning push. Let's say you did, let's say a couple of those people decided to join. That's maybe 2 recruits between now and the end of the year. That's really great. That, or maybe it's 3 recruits. Let's say that off of those parties, you book 2 parties, 1 or 2 parties from each of those parties. That's another 15 to 30 parties, right? So it's great to do one booking blitz. It's even better to create a system by which you do a booking blitz every single month. You'll see better long-term success. So reporting is the same way. Great to look at your reports, better to create a system by which you look at your reports consistently. So the first report that we're going to look at is the bar. This is called the Business Analysis Report. And I clicked on reporting and then sales reports, and the business analysis report is there. I have to do a few clicks here before I share my screen because I'm pulling up an actual person's business analysis report so that we can look at an actual person. I'm just going to double check here that, okay. Now I can share my screen. This is just a random consultant. You wouldn't even know her even. Oh, sorry. Martha, can you like make me a panelist or something so that if I click share screen, it will let me do it? If you go under participants and hover over my name and more, it should say like promote to panelist or co-host or something.
It is. Why is that not? It's not even showing the participants. We've had really.
Yeah, I don't see you.
It's not. There we go. So many weird things going on. Yesterday we were able to put it on the big TV.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And today it wouldn't allow us to do it. So I don't know.
Technology took the day off for your birthday.
Yeah, well, that's working as hard as I do. Okay, so let me share here. So this is, I exported this to Excel. Now I like Excel and I'm familiar and comfortable with it. You can look at this report just in your workstation. It's not really suitable for a phone. I will say that. If you're trying to look at this off of a phone, it's going to be difficult. Looking at it on like a desktop is easier. And for me, exporting to Excel is the easiest. And Melissa or Dallas, have either of you looked at this report before?
No.
Okay, good. So this is called the Business Analysis Report. And this is a consultant who's been around for a little while. You guys will only have, you both joined like 6 months ago. Is that right? So you'll only have 2022. You guys joined early of 2022, right? So you'll only have 2022. Once you've been around a while, it will start populating back multiple years. But what this report allows you to do is kind of see some areas where you will want to do some planning and focus. So it's a little bit, it's interesting when you've been here for less than a year, because oftentimes what we encourage people to do is to look year over year and say, I want to be growing year over year. Right? I want to be bigger this August than I was last August. When you weren't here last August, it's more of just saying, okay, I want to keep growing. Now that's hard because you look at July and you say, oh yeah, we did have this incredible flash sale. And so the comparison from August to July might be a bit difficult, but August you look at and say, we have new catalog. So you should, you can plan on seeing a bump there. We had Scooby-Doo. I don't know if then you start looking at the LTOs and saying, okay, can I get a bump there? Can I get a bump from Alice in Wonderland? We did announce that, right?
Yeah.
Seriously. I was like, did we announce?
What else do you want to
Yeah. Did we announce the, I don't know, what Alabama, something, No, oh, whoops. Yeah. So that's what you want to look at is you want to use this report to look and say, okay, where are some areas for growth? So for example, this gal here, she's a pretty high performing director, I believe, although, even high performing director, she slipped into DQ and is a superstar consultant, right? But you look and you say, okay, so what was her August last year? She did 1,200. She had, this is TWV. No, let me freeze these. Freeze panes. There we go. Okay, now when I scroll down, we'll be able to see them. All right, so this is GWV. So in August of last year, she had 4,300. So she's going to try to beat that this year. She had 6 active frontline. Last month, she again had 6, so she should probably beat that. Her team size is actually shrinking a little bit. So That's something that she will want to work on. Although for her personally, last year she recruited 2 people the whole year. This year she's already recruited 4. So she's in good shape there. But these are the things that you look at, and you're going to set yourself some goals. Now it's mid-August, but you can still say, okay, if you don't already, what's your PRV goal? What's your TWV goal? Active frontline, personal recruiting. Then it shows here people on your team that have promoted. And she has 1 so far this year that promoted to certified. So if I was talking with her individually, I would say, okay, gosh, we really got to start now looking at people promoting beyond certified. For you, when your teams are a little bit smaller, that's really where you start focusing, is you start saying, okay, people who join my team, how do I help get them to certified? And I mentioned 85% of all consultants are essential and certified. The big question is, how can you get them past certified? And what holds people up is either the fear or the skill development of sponsoring. And so talking with people, encouraging them, I'd be fascinated to hear like what your experience was with recruiting, because most people, for them, that's a struggle. How did you guys get over the initial hurdle of recruiting somebody?
I started with my with my friends who thought they would be really good at it, and just said, listen, I think you can do this. So that's how my team started. But then flipping my hostesses has worked for me, and I'm less afraid to ask my hostesses, especially once they have a successful party, like, look at what you have already and let's do this. So that has worked for me. It's harder for me to just have the conversation without that context. Sure.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic. That is great. Flipping hosts has always been one of the most successful thing, because it is, it's a much easier conversation to say, oh my gosh, look how amazing this party is. You should just join and you can have it, versus, hey, have you ever thought of running a business? So Melissa and Dallas, are you guys on the same team, or is one of you? No. Okay.
Yeah, but the join specials were really good too. I think I got like 3 in March with was that $25 join?
March, yeah.
And then I got another one last month because of the join special.
Nice.
Dallas is now asking people to join her team. They are coming to hers.
Yes. So I have 2 teamies and then 1 downline, and they both came to me. One girl didn't even talk to me, like she just signed up, and I had to like reach out and like introduce myself.
Oh, that's fun. Now I will say that's always nice when that happens. It's typically not the long term. Eventually you got to get to the place where you're like actually asking
my
somebody.
team's not just gonna fall in my lap.
I mean, maybe I've seen it rarely, but it can happen. So you take all of those and then you partner that with things like, asking during the join special and asking hosts and your best customers. I always tell people, just set a couple of rules for yourself. 2 that I recommend. Anytime anybody orders over 50 PRV, always just ask them to join and say, listen, you are incredible. Thank you so much for this order. Trust me, I know what to do with the money that I will make off of this order. And I appreciate you as one of my best customers. I will say, you love Scentsy so much, have you ever thought of being a consultant yourself? And because that's a little bit easier of a conversation. And the second rule would be, anytime somebody orders for you said it, maybe it's the 3rd time. Anytime anybody orders for the 3rd time, you just say, my gosh, you are one of my best and most loyal customers. I appreciate you so much. You've had such a positive impact on my business. And because you clearly love Scentsy so much, have you ever thought of being a consultant yourself? Just an easy flowing conversation that starts with appreciation. And that way, if they say no, you just say, hey, I'll keep bringing it up in case you ever change your mind. But trust me, I love you as my best customer. So I'll keep right on putting these orders in and spending the money down at the Ross, and appreciate all you're doing to help me and support me, So then it eases out of that conversation pretty easy as well. So that's a little less stressful. So anytime those 2 things happen, what that does is that starts to get you again into a consistent pattern. So So the bar is really intended to help you start setting some goals. So you can look at your July numbers and kind of project out to August and what you start doing. And I would encourage you to do this kind of maybe the last week of August, you start looking at September, because you're going to project out and you're going to say, okay, September. And I know we launched the what to expect. Do we launch that on the 1st of the month? What to expect document?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe you wait until the 1st and you say, okay, what's coming out September? I would still do it before, because the what to expect document is going to be the icing on the cake. But the base of your business is going to be looking and at these key areas. Okay, what do I want my PRV to be? Let's say we're planning for September. What do I want my PRV to be for September? And how many parties am I going to have to hold? How much follow-up am I going to have to do? Then you start looking at club. I don't know if you have any club customers yet, but this is the idea of club, is that you start getting club customers and in theory, and people, there are many people who have done this. You get to like 500 PRV in a month in club orders. And now, without really doing a whole lot more, you're always set for your 500 PRV. So that's the end goal with club, is to get your best customers enrolled with club to the point that you have 500 PRV every single month coming in from club. But if you're not there yet, that's fine. You just look and say, okay, how many parties am I going to have to hold? How much PRV do I reasonably think I can get from follow-up? Do I have any club orders that are going to come through this month? And then on September 1st, you can expand that by saying, oh, okay, are there any LTOs, limited time offers is what we call them. Are there any limited time offers? Now, September's got a ton, right? I think it's the Harvest Holiday Collection. So we've got the Jack Skellington stuff, and that usually sells pretty well. Although I will say the last year, as we expanded out to like Oogie Boogie and a couple other pieces, they didn't sell as well as the original Jack, but we Harvest and Holiday, you can, if you're aggressive and proactive with it, you could probably count on what's reasonable, Casey, Martha, 300 PRV from Harvest and Holiday, at least?
Minimum, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, with a
500,000.
customer base 6 months old. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but that's on top of your parties, your follow-up, and your club, right? That's like icing on the cake. Then you look at your team and you say, okay, this is GWV or TWV. This is how much team, right? And so you're already starting to plan out and say, if I want to be paid at title, how am I going to get to that 6,000 or 2,500 GWV that I need in order to be paid at title? And who on my team? And you start having these conversations with teammates to say, hey, man, August was spectacular. And you can start talking with them and saying, man, you did so great in August. And just ask them, what are your goals for your business for September? I'd love to talk with you about your goals. And maybe you even partner together with Casey and Martha and say, hey, love to sit down and have a conversation with me, you, and Casey, and let's talk through this, or me, you, and Martha, and let's talk through this. And just start introducing the concept with your team of how you're going to do that. Active frontline, looking and saying, okay, who on my team this month is going to be active? Because you're going to need those 2 to 3 people who are going to be active. Team size is something you'll want to focus on and continue to grow as you push towards director. You can see here, she's an on again, off again paid at director. Back here, she was superstar consultant pushing. The month that she hit director, she had a team of 36. In good months, she's able to hold it. In less productive months, it starts to slip. And you can see here, she gets below that 10,000 GWV. There she hit it again. So she promoted back up to director last September. And so you can see that team size of about 40, that's big enough to hit director in the better months, and not enough to hold it in more difficult months like February, March, April, right? So that just gives you an idea of where you need to be on your team size. So you're really pushing for a team size of 30 to 40 to hit director in a really good month. Now that might, if that happens this fall, that's spectacular. If that doesn't happen this fall, that's really what you're building for over the next, 6 to 8 to 12 months, which is fine. That's a totally reasonable time frame. Some people do it a bit quicker. Some people, it takes them 2 years to get to that point. Again, it's not a race against anybody. It's just saying, okay, here's kind of what you're shooting for. A lot of that will be tied to your own recruiting and how effectively you can get other people building towards that. So you just start looking and saying, okay, what are my goals? And this is that system that you put in place. You start putting in a system. What's my PRV goal? And so you start breaking down how much is going to come from parties, how much is going to come from follow-up, and how much is going to come from club. Then you start building conversations with your team to say, okay, what are some of their goals? What is it they want to accomplish? The shift at this point really shifts towards leadership, which is helping other people achieve their goals. Right? It's almost goes back to my silly thing at the beginning of, why do I tell my kids that what I want for my birthday is a goal? Because there's nothing they could give me like that I couldn't go buy myself. Like, I give them all their money anyway. It's it's like here's 20 of my dollars, go buy me a present. Well, it's just would be much more efficient for me to just go spend the $20 on something that I want. But what, as a leader, it's not about, that's not what it's about. It's about seeing other people grow. Your joy comes, your fulfillment comes. And really, when it comes down to it, I mean, that's what's so great about this business, is that joy and fulfillment and financial success kind of tie together. Your joy and your fulfillment is seeing other people grow. And on the back end, when that happens, oh my goodness, there's financial benefit for you. So your joy and fulfillment grow as you see other people grow. And so more of your attention starts pushing towards talking with your team. What's your goals? How can I help you? What do you want to accomplish with Scentsy? What's going on in your life that Scentsy would help you? You just become aware of the people on your team, and you just know, like, oh my gosh, I know this lady's got kids and it's back to school month, and August is expensive because you got to buy pencils and t-shirts and new shoes. And so it's a great month to talk and say, how could your Scentsy business help you with that? And that's kind of the mentality in the conversation, is how can Scentsy help you, and how can I help you get the most out of Scentsy? And what that will come down to for them is the same exact behaviors that you guys have already engaged in. It's going to be helping them get consistent in doing parties or Facebook parties, helping them get consistent in, or basket parties, helping them get consistent in asking people to join, flipping hosts, encouraging their friends to become consistent customers and then maybe even join, or just whatever, Dallas, whatever it is you're putting out into the universe that karma is kicking it back to you, like encourage them to, whatever that is, do that same thing. Right. But the mentality really shifts to that. And so that's what this data really does, is it's not just looking at it and going, oh, geez, this is interesting. Right. I mean, if I were having a real conversation with the lady of this, I'd be like, look, your team size has held consistent since September of 2022 when you hit director the first time. We haven't yet broken through that team size. Interestingly, now here it is, almost 2 years later, team size about the same. So my conversation with her would be, how do you grow team size? Well, the data is only good if it informs us on behaviors. What are the daily behaviors I need to take because of the data? So that's what that bar report is really useful for, and what it really tells you. And then I'll show you real quick here, because I know my time is, you're probably like, oh my gosh, we're done listening to you.
No, we're soaking it all in.
They change all the dang reporting things. The tabs look different than they used to. And man, I tell you what, Martha and Casey can probably tell you this. The tabs look like, if you logged into your workstation now and you logged into your workstation about 4 years ago, you wouldn't even know you're in the same place. There's so much different and better. Okay, so let me do, I gotta change some things. So now I can share the screen again because I've taken out identifying information. So this is her live performance report. This is where she's sitting right now this month. And I just went in here. You can actually do this if you ever want to. You can just go to choose visible columns and you can add all sorts of different stuff in. I took out name and consultant ID. They used to be over here. So I just clicked on the little minus button and now they come over there. But there are a lot of different, some things over here are pretty useless, but some things are a bit more helpful. If you want to add in their 15th day or 70th day, you can add in their birthday if you want to, once your team gets big enough, if you want to run a report and see birthdays, but we have that as a saved report that you can get in other places. If you want to add in cell phone number, you could just put cell phone number in there right there to make it a little bit easier for you to send them a quick text message, because you'd have it right on the report. And I would just come here to cell phone and put it right there next to title. And if I clicked OK, cell phone would pop up right there. I won't do it because I don't want to share that information. Anyway, so there's some fun things that you can do with that choose visible columns. But here's her team. And so if I were her right now, it's the 12th of the month. And if she's trying to build that team, trying to build those relationships, all she has to do is come here and click on PRV. And it shows her who in her organization has already got some PRV for this month. Now, for you and your star and superstar consultant, your teams are of such a size that you already know, right? Like you don't have to run a report to tell you that because your team size is probably like 10 or less. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you only have 10 people on your team or fewer, it's really easy to look at. As your team gets bigger, that's when this starts to kick in. But the principle is exactly the same. The principle is that when anybody on your team puts on PRV, it's an opportunity for you as a leader to do a couple of things. One, celebrate, and two, encourage, and three, this is the most not most important. It's the one that leads to growth, and that is encourage conversation. So it's congratulate. It's let them know how awesome they are, and then it's encourage conversation. And it looks very simple because this is her here. If I were her, she's got one person on her team who's sold 300 PRV so far this month. She's active. And then, I guess I would drop down and get these two here just so I had enough people to talk to. But it's very simple. Just shoot a quick text message to these three people and say, oh my gosh, it's only the 12th of the month and for her, and you're already at 300 PRV. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Send. And you can do this anytime anybody on your team hits 100 or 200 PRV. Just send them a quick note. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. Way to go. And just send it. All you want to do is let them know that you're there, that you're aware of them. Oftentimes as Scentsy consultants, we feel a little alone. We feel like we're not a part of a community, even though we are. We feel sort of isolated, especially if you've got a spouse who's not fully supportive, or family who aren't totally on board with the business, or sometimes people can really start to feel disconnected. What this does is this helps you reestablish connection. Oh my gosh, you're doing fantastic. I'm so proud of you. And there's, the positive impact of that is huge. And you just wait and see if they respond. If they don't respond, don't worry. It doesn't mean that you're a bad leader. It doesn't mean they don't like you. It doesn't mean that you've failed, right? Like your worth is not determined if they respond to your text message. I tell leaders all the time, your worth was determined when you cared enough to send the text message. So sending the text message is the defining of who you are. Them replying is the defining of who they are. And don't confuse those two. You don't define your worth and leadership skills by whether someone responds to a text message or not. So So you just send the text message. And if I were her, I'd send it to these 3 people and these 2. Oh my gosh, it's the 12th of the month. You already have over 100 PRV. I'm so proud of you. Way to go. Send the text message. They respond, oh, thanks. You can send in a second text message, which is, how did you do it? You'll notice I asked you guys, how did you do your sponsoring? How did you hit last month? Because I'm always kind of trying to listen for what's working, what can I encourage people to do? It also clues you into what works for them, right? Melissa, you mentioned doing Facebook parties and flipping your host. So if you and I had a longer business relationship, then I would continue to follow up with you on those things. I'd continue to say, hey, how many Facebook parties do you have scheduled for September? Awesome. And as September's going along, hey, have you any luck flipping any of your party, right? So you start to get a feel for a person and how they're choosing to run their business. If somebody said to me, oh, how'd you get your 116 PRV? And they said, oh, I sold some of the Scooby-Doo product. I'd say, that's awesome. Way to go. That Scooby-Doo stuff was so cute. I remember watching Scooby-Doo as a kid. And then my follow-up question might be something along the lines of, what else do you have planned this month? Because if your whole business is based off of LTOs, it's shaky. It's a shaky, there's this great, maybe anyway, I always hate to reference it, but there's this great Bible story about a house that's built on a rock and a house that's built on sand. And your business is either built on the rock of parties or the sand of LTOs. And the reason that's that way is because sand just shifts, right? Sometimes your customers love the LTOs. Sometimes your customers are like, Scooby-Doo, are you kidding me? And you don't get a thing. So LTOs is sand and parties are rock. And so make sure that you built your business off of parties, because they're so much more consistent and stable. Okay, so I would send that. And then they'd say, you're just starting a conversation. And then here's the golden question. This is like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's golden ticket. This is everything is building to this. And the question is, what do you want to do next in your business? If I'm texting this gal who's a certified consultant and already got 300 PRV this month, golden question is, what do you want to do next in your business? Because whatever it is, like you don't even care what the answer is. You just say, that is amazing. I'd love to set up some time to talk with you about achieving that goal. Now, the challenge is that when you only have a team of, say, 5 people, 7 people, 10 people, you're going through this text string pretty consistently with the same people. And that's totally okay. You just keep encouraging them. You just keep texting them. You just keep reaching out saying, you're doing awesome. You're doing awesome. You're doing amazing. Super proud of you. Super proud. And about once a month, you're going to plant that seed. You're just going to Johnny Appleseed it and say, I hope this apple tree grows. And you're just going to throw out another apple seed and say, what do you want to do next in your business? What do you want to do next in your business? What do you want to do next? Because eventually something will trigger, right? Something will happen where they'll say, yeah, you know what? I've been running my business here for like 6 months, but I need it to grow. I need it to become something more than what it is. I'd love to sit down and talk with you about how we can make that happen. And then you just sit down and the first couple of times you're gonna say, I'd love to sit down and talk with you for about 30 minutes. And they'll say, okay. And you'll say, how about we meet for, coffee tomorrow? And they'll say, okay. And then you're going to go into a total panic because you're going to be like, I don't even know what to say. And so you'll just send a quick message to Casey or Martha and be like, oh my gosh, I have tomorrow as a member of my team. I don't know what to say. And they'll say, hey, it's okay. So, let me guide you through, and they'll guide you through, because really it just comes down to, okay, what do you want to do with your business? Okay, great. In order to make that happen, how much PRV do you think you're going to need to do every month? Okay, great. In order to make that happen, how many parties do you think you're going to need to book? All right, let me talk you through a booking blitz. Stuff you already know, stuff you're already doing. You're already far more capable and competent to do this than probably you give yourself credit for, because you are already in the top 10% of all Scentsy consultants ever. And so 90% of consultants will look to you and say, help me understand what you're doing. And you may not feel totally comfortable and confident with it, but you've done what the majority of people are still wanting to do. So, and then boom, baby. Nice job. We celebrate that. Yeah. So, and then it's just the burden of consistency. If you and I were to talk 6 months or a year from now about reporting and how to build your teams through reporting, I would show you the exact same thing. When I have groups of people come, when groups of people come to the home office, I don't have them come. When they come and I teach new directors a class on using reports, I teach this exact same process. Because it's not a secret what you need to do. And it's not honestly particularly difficult. The challenge is whether you'll bear the burden of consistency. Whether you will do something small consistently once a week for the next 6 months. Your business will look totally different if you do 1 booking blitz today versus 6 or 5 booking blitzes between now and the end of the year. Your business will look totally different if you text out to members of your team today versus text out to members of your team once a week for the next year. If you were to text out to your team 52 times over the next year, you'd have a significantly different business. And it's not that it takes a ton of time. I mean, what I walked you through here, I logged in, sorted by PRV. If I was this consultant, it would take me 5 minutes to send text messages to those 3 people. It's not time consuming. It's not overwhelming effort. It's not this burst of motivation because I don't actually believe in the long-term impact of motivation. Motivation is unreliable. What works are consistent habits and systems. And so it's, will I do this every week for a year? Because people who are successful, people who hit director, like when you say, what did you do to hit director? It's not like, oh, I did this one thing once and I became a director. There's no one thing you can do. The people who become directors have taken on the burden of consistency. They've held often they've held dozens of parties. I know there are people who hit director and say, I've never held a party ever. Okay, well then they've done a significant amount of customer outreach and customer follow-up and recruiting, right? Whatever it is, whatever the path is, it always includes the burden of consistency, because that's the real work, is whether you'll do it over and over and over again. So, yeah. So those 2 things: run your bar report to create your plan for the next month, and then run your reports. All you got to do is sort by PRV. And there's a couple others. You'll know this is, sensational start and essential to certified is when you get new people on your team. That's useful as your team gets bigger and maybe people are joining and you don't know them. Right now, when somebody joins your team, immediately. But as they join, working with them to get to us certified and doing their sensational start will be super helpful. So, but just those 2 basic, easy things done consistently over time. Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's probably all I have to say about that topic.
To say about that.
Yeah, I know that strangely, that always comes to my mind. I'm always like, I guess that's how you end. You just say, that's all I'm going to tell you about now. And you just like
the end. The end.
And yeah. But I guess I'll just finish up just reminding you, Melissa, Dallas, you guys are awesome. You really are amazing and really spectacular. And spectacular that you put in the time and investment of time and commitment to say, yes, it's important to get together. It's important to build connection. You'll probably look back a year from now at this and be like, man, going to that, is it a cabin?
It's Martha's Beach House.
Oh, going to Martha. Oh, that's right. Going to Martha's Beach House made all the difference in my business. And people be like, why? And you're like, I don't know, just something about the getting together, the being together. It makes a huge difference. So yeah, way to go.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. And thank you for the happy
Happy
birthday
birthday.
wishes. That was very kind of you. Sorry I was so late and you had to sit with your party hats and party.
I had this in my mouth for 20
Yeah.
minutes. It's
I
okay.
know. Sorry. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Well,
I
enjoy your
even
birthday
had to put on
shower.
my bad hat because I was literally, there was sweat just pouring out. And I went to my hat thing and I was like, I can't put on a nice hat. So unfortunately, you can see there's kind of some sweat marks on this one, but it's an Idaho. It's my Idaho outdoorsy hat. Yeah. So now I'm going to go take a shower.
All right, we gotta get a picture first. Where's
Okay.
Casey? I'm right here. Oh, you're back there.
And you guys are going to do a booking blitz, right?
Yes.
Go! Thank you, Jason.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy
Happy
birthday.
Hey, guys.
birthday.
Bye. Thanks.